Hi, welcome to the latest episode of History You Didn't Know But Should. I'm Ray.
And I'm Chris.
In this episode, we're headed up to Grandfather Mountain to meet one of Western North Carolina's ghostly figures, I guess you could say, someone called the Phantom Hitchhiker. And I don't know, I think I was the one that came up with this one, Chris. And I don't remember how I came up with it, but it's an interesting story of this hitchhiker who people have seen up on Grandfather Mountain. They say that he's walking, he's got a stick, and he's walking with a purpose, and he doesn't speak, he doesn't look at them, he just walks in a straight line, and then all of a sudden he's gone.
And Grandfather Mountain is just interesting all of itself. I mean, it's just a beautiful place for people to go and to see. And I maybe we should just do a whole episode on how it got its name, Grandfather
Yeah.
Mountain. But it's really interesting because if you kind of look at the profile of that particular mountain, it's kind of resembles the head of a grandfatherly figure, if you will, bearded a man who is kind of lying down to sleep. And but it's just a beautiful place for people to travel and to visit. It used to be a private place, but the state bought it many years ago and kind of turned it into this nature preserve. But what you have happening is you've got this beautiful place, especially as the leaves have changed and winter starts setting in, and it's just got this eerie feel to it that starts to come alongside. And here you have this whole thing that even comes back to, I think that it was interesting in the research that I was doing. It talks about this mountain, how it's been an inspiration to so many people. And the place I looked at it and said, even including this individual whose name was Shepherd Duger. And the illustration or the citation or whatever given about Shepherd Duger is he has beautiful, extremely flowery language in some of the finest bad writing ever produced by a North Carolina author. So I don't know if that's like really, really good or really, really bad. Like, do I say, wow, if that was me, I would like be, oh, cool, I got a mention. I'm really good at being bad. I mean, people might say this about our teaching. I don't know, but anyway, that is the kind of the nature, the setting, if you will, for this beautiful adventure that we come into that talks about the phantom hiker of on the mountain of the old bearded man.
And it's interesting you say that. Before I go on, and I don't know the answer to this, is Grandfather Mountain part of the Blue Ridge?
So Grandfather Mountain is, yes, it's part of the Blue
I
Ridge
thought,
Mountains. It's right there, Blowing Rock,
yeah.
kind of Linville area. So yes, it's part of that just beautiful mountain range.
I have family up in Virginia, and when I go up there, I have to go well, I guess into the Blue Ridge Mountains in Virginia. And they have these places along the road where you can stop, these overlook places where you can stop, park, and go look at it. And if people never seen that, it's an absolutely, and I'm a beach person, I'm not a mountain person, but just to look and see the mountains. And it does have this blue, dusty haze that settles over it. But it's interesting you talk about the shape of Grandfather Mountain, this sort of old man type shape, because that's what people are describing when they describe this phantom hitchhiker. They describe him as an older, bearded man dressed in old work clothes, a canvas pack slung over his shoulder, and a long walking stick in hand. So I don't, nobody really knows who he is. There's no identifying. Obviously, when he does appear, he doesn't talk to people, he doesn't identify himself. Some people have said they think he's a hiker who got lost on Grandfather Mountain and maybe died up there. Others say he's just someone who loved the mountain, and when he died, he decided to stay there. And is just spending eternity, I guess, wandering the mountain. But whatever the case may be, he tends to appear at dusk on Grandfather Mountain, and he looks like a grandfather.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about this one compared to all of the other ones, I really appreciate this one more so than some of the other ones that we've talked about because it's a phantom, but it's not really like spooky, gory
Right.
kind of thing that we've been looking at. He basically is just there walking.
Hmm.
And the people that have encountered him, they say they try to talk to him, but he doesn't really have many words. He doesn't really have much that he wants to say, and he's just walking along the trail, and he's pretty fast, and he'll kind of like move past them, and next thing you know, he just vanishes.
Just
That's
gone.
spooky in its sense. I mean, yeah, I mean, seeing somebody like that, and it's very obvious that it's not a traditional hiker. It's very obvious it's not one of the good people because of the clothing that you mentioned, and kind of looks like he's, mid 1900s kind of a person. And I do find it interesting that he appears mostly as the evening is settling in. So that would lead me to think that, well, maybe there's something here as far as um, his the way that the clouds rise or the mist comes, or it gets that twilight. Because I'll be honest, it's daylight savings time has occurred, and I don't know about you. That's a whole nother topic we could have, because I cannot stand daylight savings time because it messes me up. But
Mm.
you're talking now at about 5 o'clock, it's getting dark, and you start to see as the sunlight starts to change, and things look a little bit different at this time of the day. And so, I kind of wonder if there's not some meteorological thing that's taking place that's allowing people to kind of see this mirage, if you will. And being the fact that if people really go and look at an image of Google Maps or something about Grandfather Mountain from that angle, it really does look like an
Hmm.
older man, the way that the mountaintop is positioned. So that gets in our head too. We've talked about that
Yep.
before with these scary stories, how we're fixated on a particular image. So be that what it may, I can tell you, first of all, I have a fear of hiking that I'm going to get lost.
Hmm.
Just, if I'm going hiking, I'm staying on a trail. I am not diverting no matter what. I'm going to stay on that trail. But I just think that this would be pretty creepy to just see somebody just kind of brush right past you and not say anything and then just simply vanish.
It would be creepy, but I would love it. I mean, it would make my year. It would.
And so
I mean, because
this is
this is not scary like you said. The other ones we did the road and the bridge. There's nothing scary here.
There's not, and that leads me to something else. And this is totally off Phantom Hiker of Grandfather Mountain. And so I'm going to speak to you about this because I'm not on Facebook. I don't do it. But I was having a conversation about you the other day,
Oh
and
dear.
here we go.
That sentence never ends well.
And so here we go. So somebody said, and this is where we can put fact versus fiction, it's fake news. But somebody said that you posted something about you visiting a graveyard. And so is that true?
No, it's true, but it's not true. It was
There's not
sarcastic.
the phantom visitor of a graveyard.
No, what happened was, and I had seen someone else post it, so I sort of took it, twisted it, and I named a local graveyard, and I said that I was out walking in the graveyard, which was true. I had gone strolling in a graveyard, which is
Okay, so let's just stop
another
right there for a minute.
another issue.
So you have a very interesting life, but let me just understand so that there was something that said to you, Dr. Shepard, I think I'm just going to go and stroll through the graveyard. Is that about right?
I love to do that. I love graveyards. The older, the better. Now, if they're private property, I won't trespass. But if it's just a graveyard, a cemetery, whatever, I love to go out there. But anyway, I saw someone use this as a joke, so I just sort of purposed it for myself for social media. But it was that I was out there in the graveyard, and this old woman walked up beside me and said something about, "Oh, it's a nice day." And in the story, I just looked at her and went, "You can see me?" And she goes, "What?" And I said, "You can hear me?" And she ran off. Not true, but 50% true, 50% truth, 50% lies.
And so, as we perfect segue into how we talk about these stories
Mhm.
and how this lore
Wait,
and this
wait, wait.
tradition.
So somebody read that and thought it was real?
Yes, Yes. Somebody, and they said, wait a second, are you talking about Ray? And I was like, Ray Shepard? And they was like, yes. And we were talking about you, somebody, mutual acquaintance, somebody was talking, won't divulge their names to protect the innocent. And they said, well, I was just reading. Like he was in some graveyard and they started telling the story and does he do that stuff for fun? And I said, well, I said, I'll tell you, we're currently in a series on our podcast that's talking about all of these spooky, scary stuff. He absolutely loves it. So it doesn't surprise me that he was in a graveyard. He would decide to actually say that to someone. And that lady is probably now at the hospital, who is going through a heart attack right about now.
No, no, I wouldn't do that. I mean, first off, I don't like when I go into a doctor's office or anywhere and I'm sort of sit down, and someone comes sits near me when there are other chairs. I don't like that. So I'm not a out in the wild, I'm not always a very social person. So I wouldn't have done anything like that in real life. But it was a fun joke. But
Well,
some people thought it was real. I guess
let
that
it be
explains why
known.
people look at me funny sometimes.
Let it be known that very soon there will be the ghost of insert name of cemetery
Yeah,
that you will somebody is going to continue to tell the
yeah,
story of you
yeah.
in a graveyard, and who knows, it just might be another topic on history you didn't know but should, because this is how it goes with the Phantom Hiker.
Yep.
This is how it comes with the Heartbeat Bridge. And this is how it goes with these things that somebody tells the story. And the beauty, I mean, we get to the serious part of this is that history is nothing more but storytelling.
Yep.
It is the passing down of stories, whether they're fun, whether they're unique, whether they're serious, or whether they're just quaint little stories that fit in a hometown. So, I find it interesting, your story and this story, just very interesting in how it gets broadcast and how it gets shared. And so,
Yeah.
not that you are a bearded old man walking around in the cemetery, but
Hey, I had a student the other day tell me I was old. And I asked her, I said, why do you say that? She said, well, you got gray hair. I was like, well, you folks are the ones that gave me the gray hair.
so so there you go. We were able
That's a
to
true
tell.
story. That did happen.
Well, I'm sure our listeners are probably saying, not a surprise.
No, it's not. But one of the things you talk about stories being handed down, a story, speaking of hikers, one of the things I've heard since high school is someone, the story can vary a little here and a little there, but basically you got someone riding down the road. They see a hitchhiker on the side of the road. For some reason, they slow down, stop, pick the hitchhiker up. The hitchhiker gets in the car, doesn't really say much. Maybe they chat a little bit, and as they ride down the road, the hitchhiker says something to the effect of, Jesus is coming soon, or something like that. And the person will look in the rearview mirror, turn around, and the hitchhiker's gone. I've heard that story several different times from different people over the years, and I looked into it a little bit, and it is something that people who follow those type of stories have noted. There's another one about a woman in white, who a guy picks up and he takes her home, um, and I guess he comes back or um, whatever and finds out that she had died years earlier in a car accident or something. So these type of, sort of the hitchhiker, the um the hiker, these type of stories are, there's a lot of them. And we did an episode of the podcast not long ago about a guy down the road in Pender County, remember, who ran into something on the side of the road. So there's something about traveling, especially at night or at dusk, where people will, whether it's imagination, whatever the case may be, will report to have seen strange things.
Well, we've heard a lot of strange stuff take place
Yes.
today in our episode. And if people are ever in the area of Grandfather Mountain
Yeah.
and are
Yeah.
just happening to go during dusk, or if people find themselves in a local cemetery and you see a strange man who is just wandering,
It
be
might be me.
careful. You might not want to ask a question.
No, you don't want to ask a question. Well, this is the last of our Halloween episodes for this year. Chris is happy. We got a whole nother year of just normal history to talk about. So we hope you've enjoyed this episode. Share this episode and our other episodes. Chris, we've got a lot of episodes. We've been doing this podcast now for almost 6 years. If you go to YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, or any other podcast location, we just have hundreds of episodes of this podcast where we've just covered so many topics, from the spooky to the political to the odd. We've just covered it all. So we hope that if you like this episode, you will share it with your family and friends. You'll give us a like on Facebook, give us a like on Spotify, give us a thumbs up on YouTube. And like I said, share all you can. Until next time, I'm Ray,
I'm Chris.
and we'll talk to you later.